The 15 best reblooming perennials for long-lasting garden color. Earthly Delights. Hello, my fellow garden dreamers. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, your little corner of the internet where roots run deep. Leaves tell stories, and every plant has a second chance to bloom. If you're someone who finds joy in nurturing a potted friend on your windowsill, if you've ever watched a balcony planter come alive after a rain, or if your garden, big or small, is your escape from the noise of the world, then you, my friend, are exactly who this video is for. Because today, we're diving into something every green-thumbed soul craves: color that doesn't quit. I'm talking about perennials that don't just bloom once and say goodbye, they come back again and again, like the heartbeat of your home garden. You don't need a huge backyard. You don't need fancy tools. All you need is a little sunlight, some love, and the right plants. So stay with me, because we're counting down 15 reblooming perennials that will transform your space, whether it's a patio, balcony, or patch of soil, into a living tapestry of long-lasting color. And if you love plants that work as hard as you do, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights. Let's grow something beautiful, together. 1. Catmint, Walker's Low, the resilient romantic. You know, in a world that moves too fast, emails, errands, and endless to-do lists, it's easy to forget that something beautiful can also be effortless. That's where Catmint steps in. It's the kind of plant that greets you with soft, lavender blue blooms just when you need a little magic. And the best part? It doesn't just bloom once and bow out. With a simple mid-season trim, it comes right back, stronger, fuller, and somehow even more charming than before. For those of you working with a compact space, a sun-kissed balcony, a narrow patio garden, or even a low planter box near the front door, Catmint is a dream. Its silvery, soft foliage weaves through your garden like a whisper of calm. It doesn't shout for attention. It simply endures beautifully. And if you're the kind of gardener who sometimes forgets a watering day or two, don't worry. Catmint forgives. In fact, it thrives on neglect more than most. It loves full sun, asks for well-drained soil, and shrugs off drought like it's just another Tuesday. Imagine brushing past it as you head out the door, catching that fresh, herbal scent. That's not just a plant, it's a reminder to slow down. So if you're starting your garden journey, or simply want a low-maintenance friend that keeps showing up, let Catmint be your go-to. Because in a life full of noise, a plant like this offers peace in petal form. 2. Coreopsis, Moonbeam, starlight that never fades. Now, let's drift from lavender calm into something a little more golden, something that sparkles even on the dullest days. Meet Coreopsis, Moonbeam, a plant that doesn't just grow, it glows. For anyone who's ever stood by their window and wished their garden would shine a little longer, this one's for you. With soft yellow blooms that float like tiny stars above delicate, fern-like foliage, Moonbeam brings a meadow's quiet joyride to your home, even if all you have is a planter box or sunny windowsill. It begins its show in early summer, opening petal by petal like sunlight unrolling across your day. And just when most plants would pause, Moonbeam, if given a gentle haircut, rebounds with a second wave of brightness that dances into autumn. What makes it truly special isn't just its ability to bloom again, it's how it does it. Gracefully, effortlessly, no drama, no need for fuss. It doesn't demand rich soil or perfect watering schedules. In fact, it prefers a little lean struggle, thriving in average conditions and practically shrugging off heat, drought, and pests. For you, the indoor gardener who's maybe just figuring out the rhythm of plant care, or the busy soul who needs beauty that doesn't come with pressure, Moonbeam is a gentle guide. Place it where the sun lingers longest. Let it catch the morning light. Watch as it turns even the smallest patch of green into something celestial. Because in a world where everything seems temporary, this little plant reminds us, some things are meant to come back brighter. 3. Dianthus, Pinks, the sweetheart that comes back. Let's stay in the sunlight a little longer, because just when you think your garden's story is settling down, along comes a burst of color and fragrance that feels like the garden is falling in love with you all over again. That's the charm of Dianthus, often lovingly called pinks. Now, don't let the name fool you. This isn't some shy, delicate bloom. These compact powerhouses bloom with frilly-edged petals in rich shades of pink, white, and red, and they smell like cloves and childhood memories. One breath can take you back to a grandparent's garden, a place where everything felt slower and sweeter. Dianthus puts on its first show in late spring, covering itself in blooms so thick it looks like it's wearing a lace dress. And then, after a short rest, if you trim it gently, it often surprises you with a second flush that's just as dazzling. It's a plant that asks for little, yet gives so much. All it really wants is sun, plenty of it, and well-drained soil. It even prefers things a little on the dry side, making it perfect for raised beds, balcony planters, or decorative pots by your front steps. Just be sure to give it good drainage. Wet feet are not its style. And for those of you who crave neatness and order in your space, you'll love how Dianthus forms tidy, evergreen mounds, even when it's not blooming. It's the kind of plant that quietly holds its place, never sprawling out of control, never demanding the spotlight, and yet always being noticed. Pair it with soft silvers like lamb's ear, or place it beside lavender for a classic, calming mix. No matter where it goes, Dianthus brings a sense of charm that feels timeless. So if your garden, or your life, could use a little romance that lingers, give pinks a place to bloom. They'll reward you, not just once, but twice. 4. Penstemon, red rocks, the hummingbird's favorite invitation. And just when you thought things couldn't get more vibrant, let's turn up the volume a bit. Because Penstemon, red rocks, doesn't whisper. It sings. With tall, slender spikes of electric magenta red blooms. This perennial doesn't quietly blend in, it stands tall, catches your eye, and practically dares the hummingbirds not to notice. And trust me, they always do. For gardeners working with long, narrow beds or container groupings that need a little height and heat, red rocks is a dream. It brings vertical energy without taking over the space. It's bold, but never bossy. The first wave of blooms comes in early summer, lifting the garden's rhythm like the chorus of a song. And with just a little trim after the first act, red rocks returns, bursting into a second round that stretches all the way toward autumn's edge. What's beautiful about this plant isn't just its color, it's its resilience. It thrives in full sun and poor, well-drained soil, even the kind others complain about. Gravelly ground? It's happy. Dry spells? No problem. It's the type of plant that meets struggle with beauty. For those of you tending low-water gardens, wild-scaped corners, or simply wanting to bring more wildlife to your space, red rocks is a secret weapon. Its tubular flowers are like neon signs to pollinators, and once they find it, they'll keep coming back. And maybe that's why so many gardeners fall for Penstemon. It reminds us that sometimes, standing tall and being bold isn't about taking up more room, it's about offering more life. So whether your garden is wild and free, or just beginning to find its form, red rocks will bring that extra heartbeat of energy. 5. Echinacea, coneflower, strength in bloom. Now let's slow our pace just a little, and step into the quiet strength of a plant that's been standing tall through seasons, storms, and stories alike. Say hello to Echinacea, the coneflower. You've probably seen it before, those striking daisy-like blooms with raised centers, standing upright like they have something important to say. And they do, because in a garden, and in life, resilience speaks volumes. Echinacea isn't here for a short performance. It starts blooming strong in midsummer, then keeps going with every spent bloom you pinch away. Each flower is like a declaration. I'm still here. I'm still blooming. And isn't that exactly what we need sometimes? A reminder that even when the season stretches long or the sun feels too hot, beauty can still rise, again, and again. For the gardener who's been through a few tough seasons, who's had pots fail, leaves drop, or plans fall short, Echinacea offers comfort. It thrives in full sun, handles average to dry soils with ease, and once established, becomes almost invincible. Even the bees, butterflies, and birds come to pay their respects, drawn in by its nectar-rich petals and later, its seed-filled cones. Leave some of those seed heads standing through winter, and you won't just get texture, you'll get goldfinches dancing through the frost. Place it mid to back in your garden beds where its upright nature can anchor your view. Let it stand among grasses, with black-eyed Susans or Salvia, or tuck it into a prairie-style container mix and watch it steal the show. Echinacea isn't just a plant. It's a quiet mentor, one that teaches us how to bloom boldly and to keep blooming, no matter what comes. 6. Salvia, caradona, the garden's pulse of purple. After the sturdy presence of Echinacea, let's shift to something that brings rhythm, movement, almost like music woven through your garden. Enter Salvia, caradona, a perennial that doesn't just bloom, it performs. Its deep purple spires rise like notes from the earth, standing tall and proud above a base of textured green. There's something hypnotic about them, how they sway in the breeze, how the bees hover like dancers above each flower. And just when you think their show is over, a simple trim coaxes them into Act 2. A fresh flush of blooms that feels like a second verse to a favorite song. What makes caradona so valuable, especially for home gardeners working in smaller spaces or container-friendly setups, is its discipline. It holds its shape, it stays tidy, and it creates that vertical line your eye naturally follows, giving your garden structure without stiffness. It thrives in full sun and well-drained soil, which makes it a hero for heat-loving, low-water designs. And once it's settled in, Salvia doesn't need pampering. It resists drought, it resists deer, and most of all, it resists fading into the background. Plant it in drifts for a bold repeating effect, or use it as punctuation between softer, cascading plants like Catmint or coreopsis. And when paired with pale pinks or vibrant whites, the deep purple really sings. But maybe the best part? Salvia, caradona, doesn't just feed the eyes. It feeds the pollinators, butterflies, hummingbirds, bees. They all find their way here. Because a garden isn't just about how it looks, it's about the life it invites. So if your space needs color, structure, and soul, this might just be the plant to bring it all together. 7. Blanket flower, Gaillardia, fire that doesn't burn out. And now, let's bring in the heat. Because some plants bloom quietly, others arrive with a blaze of color. Bold and unapologetic. That's Gaillardia, more affectionately known as the blanket flower, and it's about to set your garden on fire. In the best way. If you've ever wished for something tough, something joyful, something that keeps blooming when everything else seems to call it quits, this is it. Gaillardia doesn't know how to slow down. From early summer through fall, it keeps throwing out its red and yellow daisy-like flowers like sparks from a campfire. And the best part? It doesn't need perfect conditions. In fact, it prefers the rough stuff. Sandy soil, dry weather, poor nutrients? Gaillardia shrugs it all off and says, let's bloom anyway. For any of you tending sun-baked balconies, gravel paths, or garden corners that seem to cook under the afternoon heat, this flower was made for that space. It thrives where other perennials falter. It keeps its compact shape, doesn't flop in the rain, and asks for very little in return. A mid-season trim will keep the show going strong. But honestly, even without one, it keeps pushing out color like it's on a mission to outshine the sunset. And visually, it's magnetic. Pair it with ornamental grasses, with yellow coreopsis or burnt orange heleniums, and you'll have a palette that feels like high summer, even in the cooler months. But beyond the color, beyond the toughness, Gaillardia carries a certain spirit, fiery, defiant, and full of life. It doesn't fade quietly, it blooms loud. So if you're building a garden that's not just beautiful, but bold, add a blanket flower. It'll remind you that even the hottest days can still hold color. And sometimes, the toughest spots give birth to the brightest flames. 8. Veronica, royal candles, the garden's crown of grace. From the wild fire of Gaillardia, we now step into something a little more refined, but no less powerful. Let me introduce you to Veronica, royal candles, a plant that rises like royalty. Elegant and composed, bringing a touch of regal structure to every space it touches. In the world of home gardening, especially if you're working with small beds or well-organized containers, it can be tricky to find something that offers both color and form. That's where royal candles truly shine. Their vertical spikes of vivid violet blue act like punctuation marks in a sentence, bringing clarity, rhythm, and meaning to your entire planting design. They begin blooming in early summer, standing tall and steady, and if you give them a gentle trim after their first show, They'll graciously come back for more, giving your garden a second wave of upright color just when other plants start to tire. But beyond the bloom, this plant is a lesson in poise. Compact, clean-lined, and dependable, it never sprawls or flops. It's just as happy standing solo in a decorative pot as it is weaving between softer, looser plants like catmint or sedum. And for those of you who faced the challenges of curious deer or dry spells that turn soil to dust, royal candles are unfazed, drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, and utterly unfussy in full sun with well-drained soil. It's the kind of plant that keeps performing without demanding attention. It's perfect for those of you who love balance, who want a garden that feels both wild and intentional, alive and composed. Plant it near walkways where its spires can guide the eye, or at the center of a raised container where it adds height and elegance. Wherever it grows, it brings a sense of harmony. Because sometimes, all your garden needs is one strong vertical to hold everything together. And royal candles? They do it with grace. 9. Scabiosa, butterfly blue, the soft-spoken star. As we move through the garden's rhythm, from bold flames to regal towers, there's something deeply comforting about a bloom that doesn't need to shout to be seen. That's the quiet magic of Scabiosa, butterfly blue. It may not rise as tall as Veronica or burn as brightly as Gaillardia. But don't let that fool you. This plant is a steady giver, a gentle companion. It blooms with a grace that feels like a soft conversation at the end of a long day, light lavender blue pincushion flowers that float above tidy green mounds, drawing in butterflies, bees, and curious glances from everyone who passes. It begins early, late spring in most climates, and just keeps going. With regular deadheading, these blooms persist deep into fall, like a kind soul who never stops showing up. For those of you with small patio gardens, sunny window boxes, or container corners that need just a touch of movement, Scabiosa is a beautiful solution. Its blooms seem to hover and dance, catching the breeze without demanding space. It's compact and polite, never invasive, never messy. And if you're the kind of gardener who values low-maintenance resilience, this plant is on your wavelength. It thrives in full sun, asks for well-drained soil, and handles heat with quiet confidence. Even in the tightest spaces, it finds a way to bring softness and joy. Use it at the front of your beds, where it can greet visitors. Nestle it among rock gardens, where its color can peek through like a surprise. Or pair it with the likes of coreopsis and Dianthus for a cottage-style blend that feels like a painting in bloom. Scabiosa, butterfly blue, reminds us that beauty doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's the subtle notes, the ones you almost miss, that stay with you the longest. 10. Shasta daisy, Becky, the classic that keeps its promise. From the gentle drift of Scabiosa, we step into a flower that feels like home. There's something timeless about a daisy. Simple, honest, familiar. And Shasta daisy, Becky, takes that timeless beauty and gives it staying power, turning a beloved classic into a perennial performance. If you've ever dreamed of a garden that looks like the ones in storybooks, white blooms glowing under a blue sky, petals open wide like lil sunbursts, then Becky belongs in your vision. This daisy doesn't just bloom and disappear. It makes a grand entrance in early summer and, with just a bit of deadheading, gives you an encore that lasts well into the season. Its crisp white petals and golden centers stay upright through rain, wind, and heat, never drooping, never giving in. And for those of you who crave order in the midst of nature's wildness, Becky is your balance. It grows in tidy clumps, holds strong stems, and doesn't spread where it's not wanted. It's the kind of plant that knows its place and thrives there. Plant it in full sun with rich, well-drained soil, and it will reward you with years of blooms. But even in less than perfect spots, Becky finds a way to shine. It's tolerant of short dry periods, forgiving of minor neglect, and always reliable. In the garden, she works beautifully in white-themed borders, along picket fences, or mixed among purples and blues like Salvia and Veronica. She's a team player, never stealing the spotlight, but always making the whole scene better. And maybe that's why Becky feels so special. She's more than a flower, she's a promise kept. Season after season, bloom after bloom. So if you're looking to plant not just for color, but for comfort, not just for beauty, but for trust. Let Becky be the one you count on. 11. Geranium, Roseanne, the bloom that refuses to quit. Now let's talk about the one who never gives up. Every garden has its quiet hero. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one that shows up day after day. Bloom after bloom, without needing applause. In the perennial world, that quiet champion is Geranium, Roseanne. From early summer all the way until the very first frost, Roseanne keeps blooming like it's just getting started. While other plants take breaks or bow out by late summer, this one pushes through, offering waves of violet-blue flowers that ripple like a soft current across your garden. And for those of you with containers, small beds, or those tricky spaces where nothing seems to thrive, Roseanne is your faithful friend. It spills beautifully over the edges of pots, softens the borders of walkways, and weaves between taller plants like it was born to belong. The flowers are charming, yes, but it's the foliage too that earns its keep. Green, mounded, and always tidy, Roseanne doesn't sprawl in a wild tangle. She meanders with purpose, adding texture and depth even when the flowers take a short rest. Full sun or partial shade, she's flexible. Moist but well-drained soil, she's grateful. Drought-resistant once settled, she's dependable. And best of all, she asks for almost nothing, yet gives endlessly. You can pair her with ornamental grasses, upright salvias, or let her trail solo in a ceramic pot on your porch. She won't compete, she'll just complete. Geranium, Roseanne, is more than a plant, it's a presence. One that quietly says, I'm still here. And isn't that what we all need sometimes? A little reminder that some things, some joys, just keep coming back. 12. Heliopsis, summer sun, sunshine that stands tall. After Roseanne's gentle sprawl, it's time to lift our eyes upward, toward a bloom that doesn't just rise, it reaches. Say hello to Heliopsis, summer sun, the golden torchbearer of mid to late summer, often called the false sunflower. But don't let that name fool you. There's nothing false about its warmth, its energy, or its commitment to color. This is the plant that shows up like a ray of light. Not just once, but again and again. Its cheerful yellow petals perch atop strong, upright stems, blooming in bold clusters from midsummer deep into fall. And if you give it a gentle cutback after its first flush, it'll send up another wave of sunny blooms, just when your garden needs it most. Heliopsis isn't fussy about soil. Rich, average, or even on the lean side, it adapts. It loves full sun, welcomes heat, and brushes off dry spells like it was born for the challenge. It's tall, yes, but not unruly. It stands with purpose, perfect for the back of borders or as a glowing backdrop in your wildflower-inspired garden. And if your space feels a little flat, this is your vertical drama. It draws the eye upward, invites butterflies and bees to join the scene, and gives your garden the feeling of endless summer. Pair it with mid-height bloomers like Echinacea or Agastache for that layered, naturalistic look, or let it shine solo as the golden anchor in a sea of greens. There's something about Heliopsis that feels like encouragement, like a friend cheering you on from across the yard. Tall, bright, undeniably optimistic, because sometimes we all need a reminder that no matter how heavy the season feels, the sun still rises. And with summer sun, it rises in your garden. Again and again. 13. Yarrow, Achillea, the wild soul that never quits. Now that we've basked in golden sunshine, it's time to wander off the garden path, just a little. Into a space that feels a bit more untamed, a bit more free. This is where Yarrow, or Achillea, makes its entrance. It's the kind of plant that speaks to those of us who find beauty in the wild edges. The ones who aren't afraid of plants with history, strength, and a little bit of rebellion in their roots. Yarrow begins its bloom in early summer with soft, flat-topped flower clusters that rise above feathery, fern-like foliage. They come in colors from buttery yellow to blush pink to deep, moody reds, but no matter the hue, they carry the same energy, one of quiet defiance and natural elegance. And here's what makes Yarrow special. When many plants are fading, it pushes through. Give it a quick trim after its first flush, and it'll reward you with another round of blooms that lasts deep into the season. For the home gardener trying to balance wildness with order, Or for the container grower hoping to add texture and movement, Yarrow is your ally. It thrives in full sun, doesn't need rich soil, and actually performs better in lean conditions. No fertilizer? No problem. Just give it a patch of well-drained ground, and it will show up every year like it's got something to prove. Pollinators adore it. Drought doesn't faze it, and if you let some of those flower heads dry naturally, they'll even feed the birds or add beauty to your fall arrangements. You can blend yarrow into cottage gardens, prairie plantings, or even minimalist gravel beds. It's versatile, easygoing, and surprisingly architectural when paired with the soft sway of ornamental grasses or the upright strength of echinacea. Yarrow isn't just a filler, it's a foundation. It teaches us that resilience can be soft, and that sometimes, the wildest plants are also the wisest. 14. Agastache, Anise hyssop, the scented flame of the summer garden. From the soft wilderness of yarrow, we now step into a plant that doesn't just bloom, it speaks to every sense. This is Agastache, also known as Anise hyssop, and it's more than a flower. It's a fragrance, a magnet, and a celebration of high summer. You'll know it the moment you brush past it. The leaves release a warm, minty, licorice-like scent that instantly tells you, you've arrived in the heart of your garden. And that's just the beginning. Agastache sends up upright spires in purples, pinks, or even blazing oranges, drawing in bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds like a living fountain of nectar. But what truly sets it apart? Its tenacity. Once established, Agastache thrives in full sun, dry soil, and heat that would make other plants wither. It reblooms with ease after a light trim, delivering a second round of vibrant spikes that dance in the wind. For the gardener craving low-maintenance beauty with high impact, this plant is a revelation. You don't have to water it constantly. You don't have to fuss with fertilizers or protection from pests. In fact, deer tend to leave it alone entirely, perhaps even they know not to mess with a plant this perfectly balanced. Visually, Agastache brings vertical elegance and movement. It pairs beautifully with ornamental grasses, with echinacea, or with wildflowers in naturalistic designs. But it also holds its own in container gardens, adding fragrance and form even in the smallest urban space. And maybe that's its gift. Agastache reminds us that beauty can be bold and grounded, that you don't need ideal conditions to thrive. You just need the courage to stand tall and bloom where you are. So if your garden needs a little spark, a little motion, a little scent, a little soul, Agastache is ready to rise to the occasion. 15. Daylily, Stella d'Oro, the golden performer that never lets you down. And now, we arrive at the final bloom in our garden of comeback artists, and this one? It's pure gold. Daylily, Stella d'Oro, may not ask for attention, but it earns it, with every golden trumpet-shaped flower that unfurls like a sunrise. Again and again, through the long stretch of summer, from early June until the first autumn chill, Stella d'Oro quietly delivers one of the most dependable reblooming performances in the perennial world. You'll barely have time to miss the last bloom before the next one appears, glowing with that unmistakable buttery yellow charm. And if you've ever felt hesitant about gardening, worried that you might choose the wrong plant, forget to water, or plant it in the wrong place, this is the one you can trust. Stella is famously easygoing. It handles full sun or partial shade. It tolerates a wide range of soils. It's compact, tidy, and practically immune to the common issues that frustrate beginners. This makes it the perfect choice for small space gardeners, container growers, or anyone starting their green journey from a windowsill or a narrow patch near the sidewalk. But don't mistake its simplicity for lack of impact. Planted in clusters, Daylily, Stella d'Oro, creates rhythm, harmony, and warmth. It shines along pathways, glows against darker foliage, and plays beautifully with other rebloomers like coreopsis and salvia. You can repeat it down a border for a golden ripple of light that carries the eye and the heart through your space. And maybe that's why it belongs at the end of our list. Because Stella isn't just a bloom. It's a reminder that beauty doesn't have to be complex. That consistency is a kind of magic. And that sometimes, the simplest flowers bring us the most joy. Let your garden keep blooming, just like you. So here we are, 15 reblooming wonders, each with their own rhythm, their own personality, and their own quiet promise. And if you've stayed with me through each bloom, then maybe you've started to see what I see, that gardening isn't just about plants. It's about people, about you, because I know who you are. You're the person who walks a little slower when you pass a flower shop. The one who saves coffee grounds for soil and whispers kind things to seedlings. You're not just growing a garden. You're growing patience, beauty, and the kind of hope that lives quietly in the background of your life. These plants, these reblooming perennials, they mirror something in you. They don't bloom once and give up. They rest, they gather strength, and then, without announcement, they bloom again. Sometimes brighter, sometimes softer, but always, again. That's resilience. That's what we plant when we choose beauty that returns. Not for applause, but because it's simply in its nature to keep going. So whether you're just starting out with one humble pot on your balcony, or designing a backyard retreat that feeds your spirit each morning, know this. You don't need perfection, you just need presence. And if you need a little reminder now and then, look to these blooms. They'll keep showing up for you, season after season, just like you've shown up for them. If this journey spoke to something in you, if you felt your hands itching to get back in the soil or your heart lift at the thought of something blooming again, I'd love to have you stick around. Subscribe to Earthly Delights for more gentle guidance, soulful stories, and practical plant wisdom to help you grow the garden that reflects who you are. Until next time, keep blooming, and let your care become something that never fades.